There are 7 specific recreational vehicle brands that mechanics are quietly blacklisting in 2026, and you need to know their names before you sign a contract. Do you know which popular brand is currently suffering from frames snapping in half on the highway? Do you know which luxury icon is now leaking from the factory, and which dealership chain is famous for holding customer vehicles hostage for 6 months? In this investigation, we are going to open the service records to expose the specific engineering failures of the worst offenders. In January 2026, we cross-referenced 10 years of National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recall data with over 5,000 lemon law filings. The data reveals a disturbing pattern that the Recreational Vehicle Industry Association does not want you to see. The catastrophic structural failures are concentrated in just a few manufacturing lines owned by the Thor Industries and Forest River duopoly. We are going to dismantle these brands piece by piece to show you exactly how they are cutting corners, so you can stop shopping like a victim and start thinking like an auditor. First on the forensic blacklist is Keystone, a subsidiary of Thor Industries. According to independent service center reports, Keystone units suffer from the highest rate of a terminal condition known as damination. This is not just a cosmetic issue where the paint peels off. It is a structural failure where the exterior walls literally separate from the frame of the vehicle. Keystone uses laminated construction. They glue a thin layer of fiberglass to a cheap wood backing called Luan plywood. The problem is that the glue they use is water soluble, and the moment a seal on your roof cracks, water gets inside the wall and dissolves the bond. The wood begins to rot from the inside out, and you will see large bubbles forming on the side of your trailer. Once this process starts, the wall loses its structural integrity. The vehicle becomes effectively worthless because no dealership will accept a daminated unit as a trade-in. Beyond the walls, we have seen countless reports of water tanks falling out of the bottom of these units while they are traveling down the highway. The freshwater tanks in many Keystone units are held in place by thin metal straps that are attached with cheap self-tapping screws rather than structural bolts. When you fill that tank with water, you're adding hundreds of pounds of weight, and those screws simply shear off, sending your water supply crashing onto the asphalt. Next on the list is H. Heartland Recreational Vehicles, a brand plagued by a structural failure called frame flex. This is a catastrophic failure mode, particularly common in their fifth-wheel toy haulers. The frame flex occurs when the welds holding the front cap of the trailer to the sidewalls break under the stress of towing. You can often spot this by looking at the silicone seal where the side molding meets the front cap. If you see that seal splitting or separating, it means the metal structure underneath is moving independently of the walls. This happens because the manufacturers have reduced the gauge of the steel in the frame to save weight and cost, while simultaneously making the trailers larger and heavier. Repairing frame flex requires stripping the entire front skin off the trailer and re-welding the structure, a repair that can cost upwards of $10,000. The third brand to avoid is Forest River, particularly their entry-level lines, Cherokee and Salem. Forest River is one of the volume leaders in the industry, and they achieve that volume by pushing their assembly line speeds to the breaking point. This is the brand where we see the most evidence of piece rate pay negligence. Because the workers are paid by the unit and not by the hour, they do not have time to clean up their workspace. Owners of Forest River products frequently report finding construction trash like sawdust, empty glue bottles, and even half-eaten sandwiches sealed inside the walls and cabinetry. We have seen electrical wires that were stapled directly through the center of the insulation, which creates a fire hazard. We have seen plumbing lines that were kinketiked because the installer did not take the time to route them around a corner properly. When you buy a Forest River Cherokee, you are buying a product that was assembled as fast as humanly possible with zero regard for longevity. Fourth is JCO, which is perhaps the most tragic name on this list because it used to be the gold standard of quality. For decades, JCO was an independent family-owned company that prided itself on Amish craftsmanship. Owners of older Jacos from the 1990s or the early 2000s will tell you they are built like tanks and rarely have issues. But that era ended in 2016, when JCO was acquired by the Thor Industries monopoly. Since the acquisition, the unique culture of quality control has been eroded and replaced with the corporate mandate for higher margins. The modern units rolling off the line today are just generic Thor trailers wearing a JCO sticker. They suffer from the exact same issues as other Thor brands. That includes the use of cheap staples instead of screws, and plastic plumbing fittings that crack after one winter. Do not be fooled by the nostalgia of the brand name. The company that built your grandfather's trailer does not exist anymore. Fifth on the list is Winnebago, which has traded its legendary reputation for cheap laminate cabinets that swell and peel. Winnebago used to be synonymous with the open road, but their modern towable division has succumbed to the industry trend of using wrapped particle board for cabinetry. It looks like wood on the showroom floor, but it is essentially compressed sawdust wrapped in a paper laminate. The environment inside a recreational vehicle is harsh with massive swings in temperature and humidity. When humidity rises, that particle board absorbs moisture like a sponge and begins to swell. The paper laminate peels off, and you are left with cabinets that look like they are disintegrating. This is a cost-saving measure, pure and simple, because building cabinets out of real plywood or solid wood costs significantly more. They are banking on the fact that the unit will look good enough to sell on the dealer lot, and by the time the cabinets start to peel, the warranty will have expired. Number 6 is not a manufacturer. It is a retailer you must avoid at all costs. Camping World. You cannot talk about the industry's decline without mentioning the dealership chain that dominates it. Avoid buying anything from Camping World, not because of manufacturing, but because their service department is notorious for holding customer vehicles hostage. Their business model depends on selling the unit at a low price, then making profit on the back end through high-interest financing and worthless extended warranties. When customers bring a vehicle in for repair, they routinely report it sits on the lot for 3 to 6 months, waiting for warranty approval. Camping World prioritizes getting new units out the door over fixing the units they have already sold. We have seen horror stories of customers who missed an entire camping season because their vehicle sat in a Camping World lot while waiting for a $50 part. The final brand on the Do Not Buy list is the modern Airstream. This is a controversial addition because Airstream is an American icon, but that is exactly why it is on this list. Airstream charges a luxury price tag, often exceeding $150,000 for a travel trailer. For that price, you should be getting perfection, but instead, you are getting the same quality control issues as a $20,000 trailer. Since being acquired by Thor Industries, owners have reported leaking rivets, water-damaged subfloors, and failing appliances. The aluminum shell is beautiful, but aluminum expands and contracts with heat. And if the rivets are not installed perfectly, they will leak. Buying a modern Airstream is buying a status symbol, not a superior piece of engineering. You are paying a premium for the history and the look, but you are not getting a proportionate increase in reliability. The reason these 7 brands fail is that they are all victims of the private equity business model, a model that prioritizes volume over craftsmanship. They have engineered the product to survive the warranty period and not a day longer. So, if the entire modern market is a minefield, does that mean you should give up? Number. It means you have to change your strategy. If you want to avoid financial ruin, stop buying new and start looking for the safe list. Starting with Tiffin Motorhomes, built before the year 2020. Before Tiffin was sold to Thor Industries in 2020, the owner, Bob Tiffin, ran the company with an old-school philosophy. He was famous for personally answering the phone and authorizing repairs, even for units that were technically out of warranty. He believed that his name was on the side of the bus and therefore he was responsible for it. Those older Tiffin Allegro buses and Phaetons are built with a level of care that simply does not exist in the post-acquisition era. They used heavier chassis rails, thicker fiberglass, and real wood cabinetry. If you can find a well-maintained Tiffin from 2018 or 2019, you are buying a machine that has already taken its depreciation hit and is built better than a new one. Your second safe option is to find a factory direct brand like Lazy Days. Lazy Days is a small company based in California that refuses to expand and refuses to sell through a dealership network. Because they do not have to pay a middleman, they put that money back into the materials. They do not use laminated walls that delaminate. They build their units with replaceable aluminum skins painted with aircraft-grade paint. If you scratch a Lazy Days, you can replace the individual aluminum panel. If you scratch a laminated keystone, you have to replace the entire wall. Lazy Days production is low, and you often have to wait to get one. But that scarcity is a sign of quality, not inefficiency. They are not trying to flood the market. They are trying to build the perfect Class C motorhome. Finally, for those who want true reliability and are willing to think outside the box, ignore the consumer market entirely. The third option is to buy a commercial platform like a retired ambulance or a Japanese import built on a truck chassis. Ambulances are built to a completely different standard than recreational vehicles because lives depend on them starting and running. They are built with aluminum boxes that are crash tested and wired with marine-grade electrical components. You can buy a retired ambulance with a 7.3-liter diesel engine for a fraction of the price of a new Sprinter van. Alternatively, look at the Japanese imports we discussed in our previous investigation. Vehicles like the Toyota Hiace or the Isuzu Elf are built on commercial truck chassis designed to haul cargo for hundreds of thousands of miles. They use simple diesel engines without the complex emission sensors that plague modern American trucks. When you buy a commercial vehicle, you are buying a tool. When you buy a consumer recreational vehicle, you are buying a toy. Tools are designed to be used and abused. Toys are designed to look pretty on the shelf. The era of trusting a brand name just because your father bought one is over. You cannot trust the sticker on the side of the trailer. You have to inspect the frame, the walls, and the wiring. Stop letting massive corporations use your bank account as their testing ground. Stop rewarding them for cutting corners and stripping out quality. If you stick to the safe list and avoid the 7 brands we exposed today, you can still find a machine that will take you across the country and back without falling apart on the highway.